Today I'm doing a quick tutorial on color replacement brushes. I know we've talked about blending modes and different ways of making really subtle adjustments in Photoshop. This one can be on the spectrum from subtle to very bold. So I brought in a picture of a calla lily I shot in my studio. We actually used to grow these in our backyard in Kentucky. I miss my calla lilies. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways of going about this. One will be in your adjustment layers. So we're going to go to our adjustment layers and we're going to pick color lookup. Now, we probably haven't talked about this much because it's pretty deep into the program, but I do like a couple of things. I do a lot of non-silver cyanotyping, so images that look like this. So I use actual emulsion, paint it on in the dark, and then expose with a digital negative. I found this one in here that does a blue tone abstract profile, which gives a very similar look to a cyanotype. And of course, here you can always change your opacity and play around with some different blending modes. My go-to are always screen and lighten for stuff like this. I think that screen looks absolutely stunning. So I'm going to leave that one on there. And again, these are all adjustment layers, so we're turning them on and off. We're not even touching our original file. I did a plain cyanotype one on here, and it looks just like a blueprint without all the messy emulsion and painting things on in the dark. So a second way that I want to show you to make some adjustments is, again, an adjustment layer, and this one is a solid color. So it's going to go over your entire image, and until you mess around with some blending modes, let's pick, yeah, pale pink is fine. Till we mess around with some blending modes, it's all we see. So we will go down to our blending mode for color. So first step is an adjustment layer of a solid color, and the second one is to go down to the blending mode of color. Of course, you can mess around with any one of these to get some kind of interesting results, but we're going to play with color for the time being. And then in our layer here, we would just get rid of it. Let me get a bigger brush on the areas that we still want it to be, and I'm going to make it really soft brush and really big, so I can just tap around where the stem and the flower meet. Really simple way to make these big colored shifts. And remember, since this is an adjustment layer, we can play around with all different colors of the spectrum. It's pretty cool. And then play around with our opacity to bring it down to a reasonable tonality. I love that split toning. That looks super cool. And then an additional way would be to make a duplicate copy, a quick dupe of our file, turn off our background layer so we know we're just working on this one. And then under our brush tool, we have, not that brush, this brush tool, our regular Quick Command B brush tool. If you scroll down to the third tool down underneath your brush tool, it's color replacement tool. And again, we have a few modes that we can play around with. Hue and saturation, or hue and color are probably the ones you'll use. You can play around with saturation and luminosity as well. But with color here, I'm going to get a nice big fluffy brush, and I can simply brush the color replacement tool. And again, I'm going to just pop a few subtle touches to where the stem and the flower meet right there. I probably have to hit it a few times on this fringe edge. But here we have made a beautiful shift. I made one earlier. From here to here. And then we can still play around with opacity just to make that really subtle shift. And of course, all of our different blending modes. So we can go down to color would be pretty much the same as just normal or nothing. So here are 3 different ways to make some big color shifts, but never in a way that damages our original file, except the color replacement tool. That one we really are committing to it. If we turn that off and go back to this color fill with color as our blending mode, this is the most editable one because we can really shift through different colors and change them in the file, and it is still an adjustment layer, so I could go in with my eraser tool, and let's say I didn't like how much of it were, I'm going to change I can change the opacity and the flow of my brush, so I'm going to take my opacity down to about half and just take out some of the red from the fringe. And you can see the different levels of opacity from when my brush was at 100%, getting rid of the color down at the bottom, and then when I took it to about 50%, it's all grayed out there. Alright, so there are 3 different ways. One would be our color lookup. That's how we turned it blue. We can pop that back on and go to these adjustments and make any kind of changes we want in here. We can turn them straight black and white from here, and a quick way to get that sepia tone. The second one was with a color fill, and the third one was using our color replacement brush underneath our brush tools. So 3 different ways to make some pretty big adjustments to any of the colors in your file. Thanks.